Imagine standing in a narrow room with no windows, the air heavy, the walls close enough that every breath feels deliberate. There is no obvious escape, no sudden catastrophe, just a quiet pressure that refuses to leave. You wait for it to pass, but it doesn't. Instead, it deepens. And in that stillness, a question begins to form, one that feels almost forbidden in a world obsessed with comfort. What if this pressure is not meaningless? What if this unease is not an error in the design of life, but the design itself? Fyodor Dostoyevsky understood this question in a way few ever have. He did not observe suffering from a distance, he lived inside it. He watched it hollow people out and paradoxically give them depth. While others searched for happiness as life's ultimate goal, Dostoyevsky looked at the human soul and saw something far more unsettling. Without suffering, life collapses into something shallow, mechanical, and empty. This is not a comforting idea. It goes against everything modern culture promises. You are told that pain is a problem to solve, an inconvenience to eliminate, a flaw in an otherwise perfect system. Yet Dostoyevsky saw that when suffering disappears, so does meaning. Not immediately, but slowly, like a structure rotting from the inside while its exterior remains intact. He believed that human beings do not discover who they are in moments of ease. They discover themselves when something essential is threatened, when certainty dissolves, when illusions fall apart, when the question "why am I here" can no longer be postponed. Dostoyevsky's characters are rarely at peace. They are restless, conflicted, torn between desire and conscience, faith and doubt, pride and humiliation. They suffer not because they are weak, but because they are awake. Their pain is not accidental. It is the price of awareness. In his world, a painless life is not a blessing. It is a curse disguised as stability. Consider what happens when suffering is removed entirely, not reduced, not transformed, but erased. Life becomes efficient, predictable, manageable. You eat, work, distract yourself, repeat. You are spared anguish, but also spared depth. Nothing truly matters, because nothing truly costs you anything. Desire becomes shallow, choice becomes trivial, existence turns flat. Dostoyevsky feared this kind of life more than tragedy. He saw that when people no longer suffer, they no longer need to ask difficult questions. They stop wrestling with guilt, responsibility, and freedom. And when those struggles disappear, so does the soul's capacity for meaning. This is why his work is filled with inner torment. His characters argue with themselves. They contradict their own values. They make choices they despise. They feel shame, ecstasy, despair, and hope often at the same time. This chaos is not dysfunction. It is humanity fully exposed. One of Dostoyevsky's most disturbing insights was that people will choose suffering over happiness if happiness is empty. Not consciously, not proudly, but instinctively. If life offers comfort without purpose, the human soul rebels. It creates conflict where none is necessary. It sabotages peace. It invents reasons to suffer. This is not masochism. It is a hunger for significance. In Notes from Underground, Dostoyevsky gives voice to a man who refuses to be healed. He rejects rational happiness. He mocks the idea that human beings can be engineered into contentment. Why? Because a life without struggle removes freedom. It turns people into predictable mechanisms rather than conscious beings. The underground man chooses pain because pain proves he is still free. This idea is deeply uncomfortable. It suggests that suffering is not merely something that happens to us, but something we participate in when we refuse to become hollow. That pain is sometimes the soul's protest against being reduced to a machine. Dostoyevsky lived through this truth. He faced a mock execution, stood before a firing squad, and was spared at the last moment. He endured years of imprisonment, illness, poverty, and addiction. He saw human beings stripped of dignity and yet capable of unexpected moral courage. He did not romanticize suffering, but he refused to dismiss it as meaningless. He saw that suffering exposes what comfort conceals. When everything is easy, morality becomes theoretical. You can speak of goodness without testing it. You can claim virtue without sacrifice. But when life becomes unbearable, values are no longer ideas, they are decisions. You must choose who you are when the cost is real. This is where meaning is forged. Dostoyevsky believed that suffering confronts you with freedom in its rawest form. Not freedom as choice among pleasures, but freedom as responsibility for your soul. When you suffer, you cannot hide behind excuses. You cannot outsource your conscience. You must decide whether to become bitter, cruel, or compassionate. Suffering does not make you good. It makes you honest. It reveals what you are always capable of becoming. This is why Dostoyevsky rejected the idea of a painless utopia. He believed that a world without suffering would not produce saints, it would produce emptiness. People would trade freedom for comfort, responsibility for convenience, depth for security, and slowly, without realizing it, they would lose themselves. In The Brothers Karamazov, this conflict reaches its peak. Ivan rejects a world where innocent suffering exists. He demands justice. He demands explanation. He cannot accept a God who allows pain. And yet his rejection leads him not to liberation, but to fragmentation. His moral outrage leaves him ungrounded, detached from meaning. Alyosha, by contrast, does not deny suffering. He does not justify it either. He accepts it as part of existence and chooses love in response to it. His faith is not naive optimism, it is endurance. Dostoyevsky is not offering an easy answer. He is exposing a tragic tension. You cannot remove suffering without removing something essential, but you also cannot explain it away without losing compassion. Meaning arises not from solving this tension, but from living within it. Modern life tries to escape this complexity. It promises solutions instead of understanding. It offers comfort instead of wisdom. It treats pain as a technical error rather than a human reality. And as a result, many people feel strangely lost, even when their lives appear stable. They are not starving, they are not persecuted, they are not facing catastrophe, and yet something feels missing. A quiet emptiness, a sense that life lacks weight, that nothing truly demands them. Dostoyevsky would say this emptiness is not accidental. When suffering is numbed rather than integrated, meaning dissolves. When every discomfort is anesthetized, the soul loses its resistance, and without resistance, there is no growth. Pain forces attention inward. It strips away distractions. It asks questions that cannot be ignored. Comfort allows avoidance. It permits endless postponement. It fills time but empties experience. This is why people surrounded by comfort often feel restless. They chase stimulation, drama, conflict, not because they enjoy pain, but because they crave intensity. They crave something that reminds them they are alive. Suffering, when faced consciously, provides that intensity in a transformative way. It deepens perception, it sharpens empathy, it humbles arrogance, it reveals dependency, it breaks illusions of control. Dostoyevsky believed that without suffering, humility becomes impossible, and without humility, love becomes shallow. You cannot truly understand another person's pain until you have met your own. You cannot forgive deeply until you have needed forgiveness. You cannot show mercy until you know how fragile you are. Suffering collapses the distance between you and others. This is why Dostoyevsky's vision of meaning is inseparable from compassion. Pain isolates when it is denied. It connects when it is acknowledged. Those who flee suffering become hardened. Those who endure it with awareness become capable of mercy. This does not mean seeking pain. It means refusing to lie about it. The modern impulse is to distract, suppress, or explain away discomfort. Dostoyevsky's impulse was to listen to it, to ask what it reveals, to let it speak, because suffering always speaks. The question is whether you are willing to hear it. It may be pointing to guilt that needs confession, or love that needs expression, or truth that demands courage, or responsibility that can no longer be avoided. Meaning does not arise from happiness alone. Happiness is fleeting. It comes and goes. Meaning arises from confrontation with reality, with limitation, with death, with freedom. Dostoyevsky understood that the deepest joys are often born in the shadow of suffering, not despite it, but because of it. Joy that has never known pain is thin, it evaporates easily. Joy that has passed through suffering carries weight, it endures. This is why his work remains unsettling. It does not offer comfort without cost. It does not promise clarity without struggle. It insists that to live meaningfully is to accept life in its full tragic depth. And this is why we resist his message, because it demands maturity. It asks you to stop asking why life is fair, and start asking who you will become in response to its unfairness. It asks you to stop waiting for pain to disappear, and start asking what it is shaping within you. Dostoyevsky did not glorify suffering. He recognized its danger. Pain can destroy as easily as it can deepen. But he believed that denying its role is even more destructive. When suffering is rejected entirely, it returns in distorted forms: cruelty, nihilism, apathy. Meaning is not found by eliminating suffering. It is found by transforming it, and that transformation begins with honesty. If this reflection disturbed you, that disturbance is not a failure of understanding. It is a sign that something real has been touched. Dostoyevsky never aimed to reassure. He aimed to awaken. If you wish to continue exploring ideas that confront life's hardest truths without dilution, remain with this work and ask yourself quietly and sincerely, what has my suffering been trying to teach me? Because the moment you stop asking how to escape pain and start asking how to answer it, life begins to take on a depth that comfort alone can never provide.